The shadowcaster behavior can be used along with the shadow light object to cause objects to cast a shadow. In this video, we'll take a look at how to set up an object with the shadowcaster behavior to cast a shadow on the rest of the layout. The shadowcaster behavior can be used to specify which objects will cast a shadow when a shadow light object is around. Without a shadow light object, the shadowcaster behavior won't do anything. I have a layout here containing a player with the 8-direction behavior. We also have some green shapes, each of them with a solid behavior applied to them. The solid behavior is only added so the player cannot walk through the obstacles. It doesn't actually affect the shadowcaster behavior. The first thing we need to do to get these objects casting shadows is to add the shadow light object to the layout. Double-click anywhere in the layout and insert the shadow light object. The shadow light object is the light source. For an object to cast a shadow, it has to have a light source. Under the shadow light object's properties, we have the light height property. This determines how long the shadows casted are. I'll set it to 300, which will make the shadows a little shorter. Now that we have a light source, we can add the shadowcaster behavior to the objects we want to cast a shadow. All my obstacles are contained within one object, called obstacles, so I can add the shadowcaster behavior to the obstacles object, and they'll all start casting shadows. Click Behaviors, click on Add New, and select Shadowcaster under Attributes. I'm also going to do the same thing to the player object, so it will cast a shadow as well. If I preview the layout, you can see the shadows that the objects are casting. If I move the player around the layout, its shadow is updated. Also, notice the shape of the shadows. The shadow's shape is determined by the collision polygon, which is set to match each of these shapes. If you notice the shadows, though, they all give the impression that these objects are of the same height. That's because in the properties of the shadowcaster behavior, we can set the height of an object. Let's change some of the height values and see what it looks like. The default height is 100, so I'll leave the center circle set to 100, and both of the outer circles to 50. Next, I want each of these triangles to go down in size by 25. So the first one can stay at 100, the next one will have a height of 75, 50, and 25. Last, let's make this wall a little taller. We'll set it to 125. Now when I preview the layout, the shadows give the impression that the objects are of different heights. This can really add a lot to the effect if you use the height property correctly. The last property that an object with the shadowcaster behavior has is tag. Tag can be used when you're using multiple shadow light objects and want to specify which objects cast a shadow from which light source. Both the shadow light object and the shadowcaster behavior have tag properties. If the tag properties match, that light will cast a shadow from that object, or all objects that have that tag. One last thing I'd like to discuss about the shadowcaster behavior is how to set the color of the shadows being casted. Right now, they are solid black, which doesn't look very good. They need to be a little more subtle. Let's go into the event sheet and set them to something that looks a little better. Add an event using the system object and choose On Start of Layout. Then add an action using the shadow light object and choose Set Shadow Color from the light category. Here you can input the RGB value of the color you'd like. Let's set it to 60, 60, 60, so we have a bit of a gray shadow. If I preview the layout, that looks a lot more like a shadow than the solid black from before. We can make it look even better if we add a bit of green into the shadows, since the objects themselves are bright green. That would be reflected in their shadows. If we set the green value in RGB up a little, we can add some green in. I'll just set it to 75 so it will still be subtle. If I preview it again, now the shadows are not solid black. And when it comes to the shade of the shadows, they actually look like they match the objects they are being cast from. Aside from the player, of course, since it's blue, but it's still casting a green shadow. That covers how to use the Shadowcaster behavior in your Construct 2 projects. Just remember to include a shadow light object to the layout so that the objects with the Shadowcaster behavior actually have shadows cast from them. Experiment with the height to get your levels right and to maximize the effect.